the second the black and white came down, we looked at each other and we realized racing's in our blood. But for Pops, it isn't just a sport. It's way more important than that. It's like a religion. And in our house, the major sponsors are kind of like the devil. I don't mean to offend you, sir, and I do appreciate your offer. But after all we've been through, I don't think this kind of deal's for me.
You poor naive chump. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that load of sickening schmaltz, and I'm going to give you a bit of an education. At the end of it, if you're smart, you'll thank me, and then you'll sign that contract.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. I am your host Jordan, and here comes the co-host. He's a demon on wheels. He's a demon and he's going to be talking about manga. It's Kumar.
It's me. That's me. Was that one of the characters? This brother, maybe?
Spritle? Little Spritle?
Spittle.
The names are amazing. Okay, so
yes.
Obviously we're doing Speed Racer.
Yes, we're doing Speed Race from 2008. Okay, pause the podcast. I don't think you need to pause. I don't even think you need to watch these, deal with these things. You can't even read the comics if you wanted to, and I'll talk about that.
Oh, and as for the film, well, no.
There's no...
Well, it's...
there's a twist. There is a twist.
Yes, there is a twist.
There's a double twist.
A twist that if
it's a
you've
fake
been
out
watching
twist.
the...
If you saw Speed Racer...
Yeah. We're going to assume you've seen Speed Racer.
The cartoon in 67. Well, don't assume that because I'd never seen it before.
Are you can't be serious.
I'd never seen an episode. I knew all about it, but I'd never seen an episode before yesterday.
Oh,
or the day
just
before.
Absolutely blown me away.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So, there is a twist.
Yes.
But if you read the Wikipedia page for the original Speed Racer cartoon, it's real. And also, even in the earlier episodes of the Speed Racer cartoon, it's not a secret.
No.
Like, I watched, like, episodes 9 and 10 or something, and it's like, my brother. You know, it's like, in his thoughts.
Spoilers. Racer X is Speed Racer's long-lost
But then I was
brother.
wondering, was that actually in the translation, the English translation, which they added, or was it a secret in the Japanese version, or was it revealed in Japanese? And I'm not sure.
We can talk a bit about that a bit later on, but yes. So it's an open secret, obviously. There's Robot Chicken does a great Speed Racer sketch.
Okay.
Where Racer X drives up and says, "I'm here to help you, Speed, from a mysterious source." And then all the other drivers go, "Hey, look! It's Speed Racer's secret brother!
Yeah.
I wish I had a secret brother!" So, yes, not so secret.
Yeah, okay.
So, no, don't pause the podcast.
Yeah, okay, it's too late now anyway. Okay, so Speed Racer. Now, this was a very complicated episode to prepare. And I'll tell you why. So
gird your loins, everyone, because this is going to be... I'm sure this is going to be
I'm going to try to keep this brief, and it will have to be brief because I cannot get definitive answers on a lot of this stuff.
Brilliant.
So, the cartoonist in question was Tatsuo Yoshida, and he was born in 1932, died in 77. I think he went pro in 45. Oh no, that can't be right. He would have been 17. Maybe it could be right. 13? Wow, okay. So...
off to a great start.
Yeah. Yeah. So in 1960, he started this comic called Pilot Ace. Pilot A, also known as Pilot Ace.
Okay.
And it was a racing comic. It was basically about this guy with like super tripped out cars, and they fight against. He races against evil racers.
Yep.
They've all got schemes, and the main thing is his dad was the reason he was racing was his dad was building a space rocket, and he got laughed out of his. I read the first chapter of this in Japanese. I found it online. Because there's one company that's still selling this comic, and they had a preview of the first chapter. So anyway, his dad he was trying to build this rocket, but he get laughed out of this office of his co-workers. They're like, yeah, this is a joke. We're not going to finance your stupid space rocket project. And he leaves, and then his son, he's like, well, he's going to try to go it alone. And his son's like, well, we need to earn money for this. So I'm going to give up. His thing is racing, but he's like, I'm going to give that up, and I'm going to get a regular job or sell the car or something like that, my race car, and then I'm going to help my dad earn money to build this space rocket.
Okay.
He goes to his friend, who's the mechanic, and he says, I'm giving up racing. And he's like, hey, there's this race, and the prize is 2 million yen. He's like, what? Okay. And then he starts on this adventure of going out on these races and racing these crazy dudes.
Yeah.
Now,
so we're not even talking about speed racing yet.
We're not talking about speed. We're talking about
Mahha GoGoGo.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Pilot Ace.
Yes.
Now, okay, so then what happens is Yoshida set up a animation company. They were moving from manga and animation with his two brothers. I can't remember what the third brother's, but one of them was Ippei Kuri, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Okay. So Ippei also did some manga, and they started with a little space adventure series. I can't remember the title of it, but it's kind of an Astro Boy ripoff, and Astro Boy was the reason they started, was because that was such a huge hit. So they're like, let's get into animation. Mm-hmm. So the three brothers found this company, and then they're deciding on their second series, and the first one I think was in black and white, I'm pretty sure, and this one was going to be color, and they were hoping to sell it to the American market, and this one was called Mahha GoGoGo, which means Mahha GoGoGo. Go can mean go as an English word go, like go for it, or it can mean the number 5, which is the number that's painted on his vehicle.
And there's one more meaning.
And there's also the name of the main character is Go Mifune, and he was possibly named after Toshiro Mifune.
Okay. And you'll know the answer to this, but is go also a particle, like it denotes categories or something?
Go as a particle, I don't think, not that I know.
Okay.
But anyway,
I might have read that somewhere, but obviously if you don't know it, then that definitely needs a citation.
So a few months before this series premieres and airs on television, we get the show starts in '67. I've seen some sources, U.S. sources, say '65. This Speed Racer comic started coming out. But I looked online, tried to find what's the earliest one I can find. In Japan, 67, like 5-6 months before, was the earliest I can find. Okay. Now, the reason I'm going through all this is... So, the thing is, did you read any of these comics?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So, the plot lines are lifted direct from Pilot Ace, right?
Okay.
So we read two... So, the only Pilot Ace we can find in English was one Noble Hero online has translated these. It's not even on the Scanlation sites. He just put it. He's a Speeders fan. He's put it on Reddit. He's like,
so that's where you got him. Okay.
Oh yeah, and he's only translated like a chunk of the middle of the series. And in this one, we get there's one where this kid Eiichi Yamada in Pilot Ace is in a car. He's racing with this. He's been blinded. So he's racing, the guy, he's got a co-pilot in the car with him, which is a rival driver named Inca Curse. Yeah. And Inca Curse is guiding his driving, and meanwhile they're being pursued by this acrobat gang, acrobat clan or whatever. Yes. That whole plot line was redone wholesale in the Mahha GoGoGo comic and in the cartoon. Yeah. So that's redone. And also the second plot line about this car called Marengo after Napoleon's horse, which is driven by a robot. That was done in Pilot Ace, and then it was redone in Mahha GoGoGo, and then it was done in the cartoon. Now, okay, so you're like, oh, so the cartoon is based on... We should be talking about Mahha GoGoGo, Speed Racer, the comic book, which has been translated a few times, once by DC Wildstorm in the 90s, and then again in 2008 by DMP when the movie was coming out. Okay. Okay, so that is available, and those will tell you that this is, on the cover, will tell you in English, this is what Speed Racer was based on, the manga that was the origin of Speed Racer. Right. You look at the online DVD stuff, like the extras that are on YouTube, I think that's what it was, and they're like, yeah, it started as this comic called Speed Racer in 1965. You go into Japanese Wikipedia, and it says, Speed Racer was based on Pilot Ace.
Okay.
And if you go to Yoshida Tatsuo's Wikipedia page, and the Speed Racer comic book is not even listed as one of his things. It was one of his comics.
Mahha GoGoGo, you mean?
Yeah. No. Pilot Aces, but not this one. And I went onto Amazon, and the first comment on there, I don't know if it's top rated or what, the top comment says, for the Speed Racer comic from 65 or 67, whenever it was, it says, this commenter, who sounds like an expert, but what do I know, says, this is on the Japanese Amazon page, says, this is a historically important comic, but it was not drawn by Yoshida. It was drawn by studio hands as a tie-in to the cartoon that was about to come out. And he says, this commenter says, it is quite clear that the artwork is lacking the dynamism of Yoshida's artwork. And looking at it myself this week, I am inclined to strongly agree with that. I felt like the Pilot Ace stuff was wild and fast and very speedy, and the Speed Racer comics are very slick, but the cars are kind of sitting there.
Right.
I feel. So maybe there's some debate there, but
very scandalous.
The Japanese side, and also the whole plot line was shifted wholesale from Pilot A. So, except instead of the space rocket, because apparently after Yuri Gagarin went up into space, they were like, well, the space rocket thing's behind the times, so let's just change it. His dad's trying to build a super engine. He gets laughed out of the office. It's the exact same plot line on the way home, where they're like, I'm going to go for myself. So this biker gang tries to steal the plans out of the convertible as they're driving.
We were missing those pages from Pilot Ace, though, weren't we?
Yes.
That's fine. That's
but they're in the Japanese chapter that I read.
Yes,
sorry.
very good.
But almost plays out the same, except the helicopter rescue by Michi doesn't happen in the Pilot Ace version. So there's slight differences, but basically they reworked this whole thing, including I think they used some bits from Kuri's his racing manga that he was doing at the time, but apparently incorporated some of his elements, and they made this thing. And Kuri was very much like, I read an interview with him today, he was talking very much about how he was affected by, because post-war Japan, I read this interview, he's talking about how they washed things with like a washboard and a cloth. Like they had literal washboards, and he said they watched movies, and Americans had like these devices in their homes that were doing they have refrigerators and washing machines, dishwashers, all this kind of stuff. So, and they had a dad and a mom, and they were happy, and there was a pet. So he's like, let's put all that stuff in a Speed Racer, and then they were going to they also wanted to be able to sell to the U.S., but they knew they were like peanuts compared to like Disney.
Right.
Japanese animators were always comparing themselves to Disney.
Yeah, sure.
And they were like, well, let's just do our thing and maybe we can sell it overseas. And
so I wasn't aware that there was a market for as early as that, to sell cartoons.
I don't think there was. I think they were crazy. I think Astro Boy had sold.
Yes. Sure.
Astro Boy was airing, and Kimba the White Lion.
This was around
65, yes. 60 to 65. Tezuka's stuff, what Astro Boy and Kimba were selling in the U.S. Yep. Now, Tatsunoko Production, which was their company, also ended up going on to further success. They had a series called Gatchaman, which became Battle of the Planets, or G-Force, was translated twice in the U.S., so had some success. Also, they were one of the production team co-producers of Macross, which became Robotech, and also did some of the animation work on Neon Genesis Evangelion. So they have had a lot of crossover success over the years, but when I read this in the interview, I was like, what was he thinking to think that they could sell this overseas? But somehow they did.
Wow. Prescient of them. All right, so let's see. We haven't even got to the American adaptation Speed Racer yet, have we? So what have we got so far? We have an original manga called Pilot Ace.
Yes.
And then the artist and his brother went into business making cartoons.
Yes.
They made Mahha GoGoGo.
Yeah. They're like, let's rework Pilot Ace. Change the names. Yeah. Change the plot a little bit. Take out the rocket stick.
So they've essentially adapted Pilot Ace to Mahha GoGoGo, the cartoon, and then published a tie-in manga. Perhaps a tie-in manga at the same time. So it's not correct to say that Mahha GoGoGo is based on a manga called Mahha GoGoGo. It's based on Pilot Ace, which came before.
I think the other internet nerds in Japan would say correct.
Right.
But this manga...
that's not what the official story is.
The manga
online.
came out like 6 months before or whatever, and on Amazon, the Japanese edition of Mahha GoGoGo, the comic book, does say by Tatsuo Yoshida on the cover. So that's the official company line.
It might not even have been drawn by...
That's right. It seems to have been drawn by Studio
We have a very
Games.
early example of the tie-in of producing a comic to sell your
that's
visual, to sell your film or cartoon product.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yes. So, but actually, the Pilot Ace was. I mean, there's a lot of volumes. I figured out there was 1,200 pages worth of comics, which is quite. We read about 200 pages in the middle, which this guy somehow had and translated online. But I think that might be about it, I think, for the background. Tatsuo Yoshida also drew, there's no time, he drew the Superman, the Japanese version, the licensed Japanese Superman, which is impossible to find, but there's a few pages online you can find of that.
Well, I think the story's not complete until we talk about Speed Racer, the American...
Yes, absolutely. We have to talk about that,
Yeah. Are you prepared to move on to that now?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right.
I don't know if we want to say anything more about Pilot Ace.
No, I think we've established that it was... we read it. I mean, it's pretty standard stuff. It looks a lot like Speed Racer.
I think if you know Speed Racer, you will know Pilot Ace because of the storylines. But it is crazy town. I don't think it's that standard. I think the stuff that happens in it is wild.
When I say standard, I mean it's the kind of plots that I'm familiar with from watching Speed Racer as a kid.
Okay, right.
So it's not... This isn't a grounded kind of serious world. This is lunacy. Like his car, like there are robots driving cars, there are guys flipping cars on top of cars and calling themselves the Acrobat Clan.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would say the world is Tokyo. It's 1967 Tokyo. I think that's an important point we need to keep in mind when we get to the movie.
Okay.
Because it's like the world is normal, the awesomeness is the cars, and that people are building these cars, and that there's conflicts about these cars.
Yes, everyone's got a scheme, someone's stealing diamonds, or rocket fuel.
By the way, I want to say that every Fast and Furious movie from 5 to 10 follows Speed Racer note for note. That plot line where he's blinded, but if he's blinded, these cars jump from these crags, like they hop from one to the next, and that's just like in Fast 8 when they're in Abu Dhabi and they go from skyscraper to skyscraper, and there's the bridge. That same line, there's a bridge that's falling, and they're driving up the bridge as it's crashing. That's in Fast 9.
Brilliant.
The brother who was exiled from the family after the last race, and then returns mysteriously. That's in Fast 9.
Okay, well that's brilliant, because that means if we ever run out of films based on comic books come up, we can do the Fast and the Furious.
I was shocked as I was reading these and watching the cartoons. I was like, this is... It's like almost like they watched it. It's almost like Vin Diesel was like, "We're doing this."
Well, there you go.
Also, because when the one with the Marengo car, which is called Melange in the cartoon version, you can ring the bell for that.
Ding ding ding, Spice Melange.
Yeah. So that plot line. So in that plot line, a bunch of people have been murdered by this race car. This race car showing up and killing people.
Yeah.
And then the cop shows up at the hospital because he's still blind and his eyes are being healed. And he's like, "Look, our cars aren't fast enough. We need you, Speed Racer. Fast 5 to 9." Or 6 to 10. Every time the government's like, "We can't solve this. We need you and your team, Dominic Toretto, to chase these guys down in your fast cars." And they do everything in their car. In the whole thing about the Fast movies is, it's like the Marvel movies, but instead of people, it's the cars doing the stuff. And that is exactly what is happening in these Speed Racer cartoons and comics, where like the Acrobat car, when it spins around, it's like, this is Fast and Furious.
Right, you heard it here first. Fast and the Furious movies based on Speed Racer.
100%.
Brilliant.
100%.
Alright, that's all we can talk about that for now.
Yes.
Hit me with Speed Racer, the adaptation.
Oh, okay, so I don't know how they managed to successfully sell, so I don't know what the deal was, but one guy, the guy that got a handle on it was, I think his name was Peter Fernandez, and he ended up rewriting the episodes.
Peter Fernandez, yep.
And
what kind of information would he have had about what's happening in the episode.
My guess is he would have been given a raw translation of the scripts, or he would have hired somebody to do them. But his instruction from higher up was to rename to what we call now localization, which is to rename all the characters, to give them American names.
I read the introduction to that the Speed Racer comic, the tie-in one that was published. What was it published? 2008.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's hilarious reading this. So Peter Fernandez is paid peanuts to do this, basically, and he did not give a shit.
Yeah. Right.
He's just like, what should I call this guy? Well, he's a racer and he's pretty speedy.
Oh yeah,
I'll call him Speed.
So at first, when I saw these names, I was like, "Holy nominative determinism, Batman! This is wild."
Yeah.
Everybody's named what they are. Inspector Detector is the name of the detective. But then I was like, "Oh well, you know." He was named Go Mifune. So Go is like also a nominative name. And in Japan now, the manga, especially old isekai manga, the names are only nominative. Whatever the character name is what they are.
So Peter Fernandez, not a hack, just ahead of his time.
Yeah.
But yes, you know, he in this introduction, which is really funny to read, he literally just sort of goes through his thought process as to how he named the characters.
Right.
You know, like Spritle. He couldn't tell if Spritle was a boy or a girl when he was first looking at it. And he's like, so I need a name that can sort of work for both. He's kind of small, and I guess he could be like a sprite. So I guess I'll call him Spritle.
Okay.
And the monkey. This is the monkey. I don't know what kind of monkey this is. Has it got a name? You know, chimps are kind of like monkeys. He's Chim Chim.
Right.
This is literally his naming process. It's so great because he's just paying, I think it's like $180 an episode.
Yeah, right.
Or something like that, which even in 1960s dollars is not a lot of dollars. And also, he's doing voices. The higher-ups told him, this is brilliant.
Yes. He hired 3 other people,
No, not 3 other people, 2 other people.
No, you have 1 female and 2 males. I'm pretty sure there were 4 of them altogether, I thought.
He had to hire the 4th out of his own pocket.
Okay. Okay, right.
By splitting his wage, which was already low.
Right.
With this guy. This guy was like some sort of retiree, essentially, or on the verge of retirement.
Okay.
Sort of had done a lot of voice work in the past, but now the phone wasn't ringing anymore.
Okay.
And he's like, well, I know he can do the job. He'd be a great voice for Pops Racer.
Right.
That's the name of the father, Pops Racer. Calls him up. I can pay you 60, I can pay you like $85 an episode. So he's like, that's it? Whatever, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Classic. But after a while, he did start having fun because some of the, like Inspector Detector, some of the names start to get like a little bit clever.
Right.
Like Oil Slick, names like, funny kind of punny names.
Yeah,
so he found his, he was as creative as he could be with the limitations he was working with. But anyway, this Speed Racer, I mean, people of a certain age, this is what Japanese cartoons
absolutely
were. That's what they were.
Yeah.
Like, so it's people running through their lines really quick.
Yep.
I've got to finish the sentence before the mouth flaps end.
Right. Yes.
A lot of eyeing before when the mouths are open.
Yeah.
Like, oh!
Oh, yeah. In Robotech, it was always, what? What was that?
Yeah.
Said again and again.
Yeah. There's a great compilation. I'll post it on the Facebook page. There's a great compilation online of Speed just going, oh!
Right.
It's about 10 minutes.
Right.
Lots of pauses.
Yes, but also lots of fill-ins. And I noticed, I watched the first episode in English. It's on YouTube. And there's a whole thing where Speed says, "My name's Speed Racer." There's a racing scene. He's like, "I'm the best racer there is, and I'm going to tell you my backstory of how I got to be here." And then the episode kind of starts, and we get the whole thing about his dad quitting the company or being laughed out by his rivals or whatever. Then I watched this, like, I bet you there's no voiceover in this scene in Japanese version. And sure enough, I watched the Japanese one, and it's just racing. Yep. And then then we get to the scene, and there's no background to that. It's really like dumb American kid writing is what they've put in there, and I sense there's a bit of that going through here probably. And I guess they would have had to rewrite some of the jokes and stuff, but there's usually a laugh at Chim Chim and Spritle that happens usually to break tension.
Yeah, well, they're always hiding in the boot.
Yes, there is that too.
Or the trunk.
But then there's a laugh, so I'm guessing they usually have to... I'm assuming all that stuff had to be...
Well, there's always wacky... It's much like Pilot Ace, like the comic we read. There's always teams with animal themes and
Yes.
And they've always got some sort of scheme on the boil. It's not just about the race. They've got the secret plans, or they're trying to steal the secret plans, or they've kidnapped somebody. It's always some sort of life or death scenario that's occurring out on the track.
Yeah.
And of course, Speed Racer has his gadgets.
Yeah. And there's the girlfriend, Trixie, who was Michi in the Japanese version, and in Polynesian it was Kyoko or Keiko.
Okay.
The translator used both.
Well,
not quite sure.
We're in that translator's debt, so we won't criticize him. But yes,
but also I'd say that it's very, very Japanese, not just the visuals. I'm sure any kid watching this and seeing the eyes and like those eyelashes on Speed Racer would be like really like
that's another thing, of course, like very feminine. Like Speed Racer is very feminine, effeminate main characters.
Yeah. And but there's some lines like from the Acrobat clan that are like, I think this is in. So some of this stuff, because I ended up reading, I wasn't going to read the Speed Racer comics, but I started reading them, and then they started melting together because, like, the plots are the same, like him turning down the trophy at the end of the race because he was blind and he wants to give it to Inca Clan Inca Curse / Racer X, depending on the version.
Yep.
But then the leader of the Acrobat Clan gives a speech where he says, We hone the abilities that we cherish deep within our very hearts. It is our very reason for existence to live and die by racing. I was like, whoa, this is so Japanesey. And that's in the cartoons too. And it went all the way through every version, through through Pilot Ace, to the Mahha GoGoGo comic, to the Mahha GoGoGo cartoon, to Speed Racer. It's in all 4 versions.
Every cliche about dubbed Japanese cartoons that were on Saturday mornings, or whenever when you were a kid, is present. The stilted dialogue, like the formulaic kind of like dialogue about honor or with a strange sentence structure, pauses, voiceovers where there are no voices in the original.
Yes.
And of course, effeminate stars like Astro Boy. He also looks a bit effeminate.
Well, there was a character...
Okay, we can't talk about Astro Boy. I'm sorry. I regret bringing it up.
I need to open a tab on Gatchaman, which is the other Tatsunoko production, which became a hit in the US. But there was a character in there, the villain, could switch genders. Apparently at will.
Wow.
And so sometimes he would look like a woman on screen, and sometimes it would be a dude. And in the translation, of course, they've wiped this out. The English translations are like, no. So as a kid, you would watch this and go, what? Why is he wearing lipstick now?
Isn't it worse? He's cross-dressing now. What are they doing?
Well, he just have like effeminate features or something. So it would be an odd thing. But
and of course, most famously, rushing through the dialogue to match the lip flaps.
Yes. Now, so this must have been on TV in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That and Astro Boy in the 80s?
In the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay, seems late, because I was getting the 80s version of Astro... Well, you might have had you would have had the 80s version of Astro Boy. But to have the 60s Speed Racer on the same time seems like
Well,
weird.
It was just on.
Yeah.
Because it was just on. So you saw it.
And there's only 52 episodes.
Right.
Which is the normal Japanese, like, we're done. It doesn't matter if it's a hit or not. It's like, we're done. Let's move on to the next thing. So I'm guessing it would have been on high rotation. Like, we would have seen the same episodes again and again.
But I dare say.
Yeah.
But of course, as you say, they all tend to run together after a while, don't they?
Well, also, another important point there is that there's multiple episode plot lines, which would not happen on American cartoons. You'd have things like the one that we talked about where he goes blind. That's a 3-episode plot line. And the one with the car driven by a robot, that's a 2-episode plot line. So... That was that's a very Japanese thing, which was, I mean, when I saw Robotech, that's like the whole thing is just one 36-episode long story. That blew our minds.
Yeah.
It was not like watching G.I. Joe or Transformers at the time. It was so radically different. So I think at the time, even 2 or 3 episodes in a row would have been pretty wild for an American viewer, for an American kid. Because of the reruns and stuff, it'd be hard to know. I guess they treated this stuff like trash, really, in the U.S. It was you could just show the episodes in random order, yeah.
They didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see he didn't care. This guy was paid a pittance. He's working for peanuts.
Well, yes, and also Tatsunoko Production apparently gets no money from the U.S. stuff, or even the movie. His, Ippei Kuri's name is in the credits of the movie somewhere, but apparently Tatsunoko got no money from this.
Well, we better start talking about the movie, because you might be wondering why, when we normally spend all this time talking about comic books, we've been talking so much about the Speed Racer cartoon. This film is based on the Speed Racer cartoon. This film exists because of the Speed Racer cartoon.
Okay, so this is a movie in which Susan Sarandon carries a chimp around in some scenes. This movie is crazy. And I will say, when I watched the first 5-10 minutes, I was like, oh, the Wachowskis loved the Speed Racer cartoon. That's why they made this movie. They're really passionate about this, is what I felt coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
And apparently one of them was really into Ranma. I saw some stuff on the Japanese wiki page about...
Shouldn't laugh at that.
About, like, they were, like...
really into Ranma.
And they made Animatrix, of course,
yes.
so they're... And they worked in comics before they got into movies, right?
Did they?
Oh, yeah. So they wrote, like, a bunch of Clive Barker tie-in stuff, like Hellraiser comics and Ecto Kid and stuff. And, of course, Grant Morrison sued them with them for The Matrix for ripping off Invisibles, because there were so many similarities.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't think that went anywhere. But they started out in comics, so... I don't have any doubt when the movie started. I didn't have any doubt that the Wachowskis were really into this cartoon as a kid, and they wanted to bring it to the screen. And I also felt they wanted to bring it. And I can't remember what episode we talked about this, but it was the nostalgia version. So it's not what Speed Racer the cartoon was. It was what Speed Racer was in their minds. That world of what the size that it was in their minds, which is much bigger than what it was on a TV screen, is what they tried to make.
Yes, that's right.
In this movie.
Which episode were we talking about that?
I'm not sure, but so they were into comics or into anime. This thing starts, and oh my god, the colors. So
It's my very first word. Technicolor.
I wrote colors and underlined. It's like my first note almost. It's really interesting because we're just coming at like Barbie's in theaters right now. I went to see that a couple of weeks ago, and that is really amazing. And I didn't feel like it was overwhelming. The colors, even though the colors are like pow.
Yeah.
Because everything's tactile. I think they actually built these pink sets and painted these things pink, and I think the CG colors are like blinding
in this film.
Another thing it reminded me of too was another adaptation of a 60s cartoon, which was all colorful and made to look just like it, and it stars John Goodman, which was Flintstones. So it's aesthetically a kind of similar thing going on there, but somehow, so for this, I mean, when this came out, it was a big flop, and everybody said, this movie sucks. Mm-hmm. And I believed it, because name 3 good Wachowski movies. You can't. There's 2. There's Bound and The Matrix.
I haven't even seen Bound.
And Bound is awesome. Bound's better than The Matrix. Matrix really is a Dark City ripoff, so even that is kind of I'm kind of... So, I'm like, okay, so I heard it sucked. But then, in the last 5 years, I've hearing people say, actually, this movie's pretty good.
I heard this film's
and you should give it a second chance. So I was really looking forward to it.
I was too. I was coming into it expecting to like it. Because, of course, I know better than all the critics.
Yeah.
And I like Blade Runner, you know? and I like, The Thing, all the other films that were panned on release.
Right.
And so I was coming into it ready to like it.
Oh, yeah.
But as you point out, the first thing you see is that it is really, really bright.
Yeah.
The colours are really, really bright.
And actually, the other thing I'll say about it, and this is jumping way ahead, but I loved all the driving scenes. Anytime they're in their cars, racing around somewhere, the colors were fine. Now, I couldn't follow what was going on. I was like, what car is that? What just happened? I was like, oh my god, this looks great. And if there was a supercut of all that stuff,
you'd watch
all the car races in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, however much there is, I'd be like, wow, great. I'll watch this all day. But when you get to the houses and stuff, they're like super blurry, colorful. Everything's like, and everything's on like it's like a Robert Rodriguez movie where everything is on green screen.
Yes.
Even there's a scene.
The whole film was shot.
The whole scene. There's a scene at the beginning where he's in a classroom, and it looks bad. And I'm like, why is this? Why can't they just build a classroom and have him sit in it instead of doing this against a green screen?
Yeah.
It was bizarre. It drove me crazy.
Yes.
But it's not the car stuff. It's only when they're in an office or talking or in a classroom. I was like, why does this look like this? And it doesn't look like... I think that again, jumping way ahead, we're in Coruscant. The whole movie's in Coruscant for some reason. Yeah. I'm like, why? The world is awesome. The cars are just a measly part of it. They're not. The cars aren't special in the universe of this movie. If you know what I mean. Okay, go ahead.
No. I mean, you can unpack that if you like. But,
well, what I mean is that the car in the cartoon and in Pirates, the cars are really special, and it's Tokyo 1967. It's an ordinary world, and the cars are awesome, and they have awesome mechanics and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So this is why I'm not sure that the Wachowski sisters were big fans of Speed Racer.
Right.
Because this is not set in the Speed Racer world.
Right.
As you said, when you say it's like Coruscant, it's not just like
Coruscant. You know what? It's because of the test race. It opens with a test race, right? Or you're in a race. You don't see the world at first. So I'm like, oh, this is like what it must have felt like to watch a cartoon. It's not until you get outside and you go to their house and stuff that you're like, oh, this is not what the cartoon was like.
They've just set out to make an incredibly lurid spectacle.
Yes. Yes.
So when Kumar says it's like Coruscant, it doesn't just mean that it was all filmed in front of a green screen.
No,
it's literally like
it's a
sci-fi
city. Yes.
Yeah, like a sci-fi mega city.
Yeah.
So it starts off, it starts off on a course, the Thunderdome, where treated to a kind of confusing montage.
Very confusing. Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll just describe the montage quickly. So Speed it has about 3 different timelines, or maybe 4, running at once.
Yeah.
Speed is driving around this track, which looks like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And it's called the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, while he's doing that, we're seeing him in school, where he can't focus in school. He's like dumb because he only cares about racing.
Yeah.
And
it's actually fun. There's some funny bits in there, actually. I laughed through.
So I could have done without this. The kid playing young Speed Racer
could have done without 40 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, well,
in fact, I got a text from you that said, this is too... I'd sent a bunch of texts to you, and then I got a bunch of replies back, and one of them was, this is too long. I was like, what is this referring to?
What could it be?
And I thought, is he talking about the movie? I thought I'd wait to ask you here.
But, did you see the timestamp on that message? It was like almost midnight.
Right.
And I'm waiting for this movie to end.
Right.
It is too long.
Yeah, 2 hours 15. It was the origin of bloated movie times. Maybe there were...
It's so long. It's ridiculous. So, and this beginning montage is... It's really confusing, because we're seeing him as a kid, we're seeing him on the racetrack, we're also seeing him off the racetrack, getting ready to go on the racetrack. He's in a locker room.
Yeah.
We're also seeing him driving with his brother, Rex Racer, picking him up from school, taking him to the track, driving him around.
Yeah.
We're also seeing scenes with the brother quitting, like leaving home.
Yeah.
And so these events are not sequential.
No.
They're just happening all over the place. And meanwhile, I feel like I'm getting stabbed in the eyes.
Yeah.
By the colours.
The CG colours.
It's so over the top. It's like seizure-inducing.
You know what? So as I've mentioned a few times on the show, I watched the movies the night before, so I can digest overnight. Mm-hmm. And I turned off this movie and I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to remember this movie by tomorrow. I'm going to have forgotten it. Because I couldn't follow anything that was going on with the plot or anything at any point. But also the editing was crazy, and I had been talking to my son about Batman Begins, and I was like, great movie, but the editing and the action scenes is really confusing, and also it's all out of order at the beginning, like it's not sequential, and it was confusing, like a bit confusing first time I watched it. And then last night, after we watched this, my son, for kicks, I watched Batman Begins, and I found it very easy to follow.
In comparison.
In both those points, both the first 20 minutes, which are out of order, just like this movie was, and also the crazy editing during the fights, which is the races in this. I was like, I didn't have any problem with Batman Begins last night. Wow. And I don't know if I was inoculated because of this movie, or I just...
Inoculated is a great word, because this is really, you're like, it really sickens you.
Yeah.
And so that afterwards, come at me, Batman Begins.
Yeah, exactly. It was something like that, maybe. But yeah, I was very worried that I wouldn't be able to remember it, because now we've mentioned Rex leaves after some race that, see, all these things I've watched too much of this stuff. It's all blurred now together.
He leaves. This is, I guess...
I think he lost a race and then he...
Well, no, what happened was he left home. We don't know why, but John Goodman / Pop's is angry at him and throws him out.
Yeah.
Then he starts. He says to Speed, "You're going to hear a lot of things about me that there's a lot of bad things about me, but I just want you to remember, don't believe any of them. I'm still your brother," etc.
Okay.
And then we get a lot of clips of him. He's a really dirty racer.
Right.
And every time he races, there's all these accidents. Other people are dying in the races with him, or not dying because they have the quick save.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
But
There's a very big difference from the... So apparently in the Japanese comics and the cartoon, they believed that they were toning down the violence. Like, Ip-Winfield in this interview says, we thought we were dialing it back, but when it came to the US, they had to cut 3 minutes out of every episode.
Because the people dying constly.
Yes. And Peter Fernandez would write in lines like, "Don't worry, he's going to the hospispittal. He'll be all right later."
Like a voiceover.
Yeah.
We're going to get him to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it kind of figures into the plot because... And then he dies in an accident. He's racing around in ice caves.
Yes.
And there's a big fire, and he dies. And Susan Sarandon drops a wine glass. Crash.
Okay. Yeah.
And then everybody's sad. And this is still in the opening montage of the film. It's been going on for what feels like 9 hours.
Yeah.
And Speed is racing against a phantom version. He's racing against the best lap time that his brother set 10 years earlier. And he can see his brother as kind of like a red shadow.
Yeah, so this was
like
so confusing. Game. So confusing because they're overlapping. The visuals are overlapping like a ghost image of his brother over him or vice versa. I don't know what was going on.
If you've ever played a racing game, sometimes you'll have a pacing car with you that is a ghost, and you can drive into it and pace it. So you haven't. I don't play racing games myself, but I'm familiar enough. I remember watching it, thinking, "Wow, this is like I'm literally watching a computer game now."
Right.
This looks just like a computer game. This is like Mario Kart, the movie. This is more of a Mario movie than the Mario movie that came out this year.
Yeah.
So and then there's this baffling thing. They do these slow wipes. Did you notice there's very few hard cuts?
Oh, no, yes. And it's often these floating heads kind of thing. It's
so weird. They will have a big face, someone's head in profile.
Yeah.
Right up at the front of the screen.
Floating heads, I've written in my notes here. Yeah.
What have I written? I've written something similar.
Yeah.
Constant slow wipes, kind of messy. Why the close-up face wipes?
Yes.
And so instead of transitioning with a cut like a normal film, a guy's head will float across the screen and drag the next scene behind it.
Yeah.
And this doesn't happen once or twice. This happens constantly.
Yes.
Like every other scene is ending this
Here's
way.
a great question, why? Because when you watch the wipes in Star Wars, they are there to remind you of the wipes in the serials.
Yep, that's right.
Why do we have these floating head wipes?
Why indeed?
They remind me of some music video, and I can't remember which one.
I know why, Kumar, and I can't wait to tell you why.
Oh, great. Is this for later, or is it going to be...
It can be for later. I think we'll come back to it later. So, we can move on to, I suppose, what we'll laughingly call the plot.
Okay, so this is... I was a bit worried also coming into this episode because it was like, well, I didn't understand any of it, and is Jordan going to explain it, and is it going to be a long episode because of that? Because anytime I don't understand the episodes, the movies, we end up with a very long episode of the podcast.
All right, I'll keep it as simple as I possibly can. Right. Speed wins the race.
Okay,
and now the phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
People want to hire him.
Yes.
But Speed is...
But they're all like corporate sponsors. Yeah. They want to buy him out.
That's right, and Speed doesn't want to do it. We get Spritle keeps answering the phone for him, saying he doesn't want to talk to you and hanging up. Because Spritle knows that Speed Race will never leave Racer Motors, I think their company's called.
Yeah.
They build cars, apparently. Just the four of them.
Yeah.
No, wait, it's Pops, and it's Speed, and it's their mechanic Sparky, who was in the cartoon.
Yes.
Sparky, who's pretty much comic relief. Well, there's quite a few comic relief characters in this, but Sparky is more or less...
Well...
He gets in fights and is amusingly trounced.
Yes, but I think Spritle is quite cute in both comic versions and in the cartoon. And I think some of his bits in here were kind of funny, but I would have preferred a cute kid. He's more of a...
He's funny kid.
He's more of a prankster, or what's the word? Yeah.
He's a bit of a brat. Yeah.
Yes.
A troublemaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, he's not that. Well, they needed someone that could act, and they've gone for, as you say, like Eric Cartman style mischief,
Right.
rather than apple cheeked antics that we. But at least this kid could act, because unfortunately the kid that played young Speed Racer could not act, and I was groaning in every scene that he was in. So then a big plane lands in the front yard.
Yes.
And out comes Roger Allam.
Yes.
Who is a comic book movie Oblivion All-Star.
Yes.
Having appeared in Tamara Drew.
Yes. He's also in V for Vendetta.
So he is, the voice of fate.
And apparently he is in the Sandman TV series, the Netflix series.
That's right. He plays as one of the devils, Azazel.
Right.
Yes, so...
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
Really surprised.
And he is pretty much the best thing about this film.
Yes.
He's come to hire Speed. He's come to try and recruit him.
There's another all-star we haven't mentioned, which is Christina Ricci, who is also in Casper and the Addams Family and the Wednesday TV series on Netflix.
Of course, based on a comic.
So, she will be an all-star.
Yes. She's a future all-star.
Yeah.
A quantum all-star.
So she
just hasn't been observed yet.
Yeah, she's Trixie. If I'd known about Roger Allam, I had no idea at the time we did Tamara Drew that he'd be showing up once more.
Me neither. I was thrilled to see him.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's the best thing about this.
Yeah.
He just oozes sleaziness in every scene he's in.
Well, I don't know. When he showed up, he was quite... I was like, oh, maybe this is a sincere dude, and what's...
No way!
Because I thought, well, the thing that's going to go wrong might be something else and not him. I thought it might be like that when Speed gets offered this role at the big giant company, it would be just like he didn't like the company or something. I didn't think it was going to be...
Sure, he does seem, when he does appear at the front door, he does seem a little too cute, where he's got the cigars and the...
Yeah, but then there's this whole thing about, there's a whole discussion about pancakes.
Yep.
And I knew this movie was 2 hours 15 coming in. I'm like, come on.
Do we have to talk about
pancakes? Do we have to talk about pancakes? Can't we cut some of this stuff?
And then, he takes them to his company. He takes them in his plane.
Yeah.
And they go over the... Coruscant.
Yeah.
They're flying over it at a low... And there's a line put in there. Again, this movie's 2 hours, 15 minutes. The line is, I've never seen the city this close up before. And Roger Allam, I can't remember his character's name.
It was Royal Time?
Royalum or something like that?
Yeah, something, Royal something, yeah.
He says, yes, it's normally not allowed to fly this low. Only 6 licenses are granted a year.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a scumbag capitalist and I'm supposed to hate you. Anyway, they go to...
Well, is that the purpose of the line? Because that's another line they could have cut out, like the pancakes line.
They absolutely should have cut it. It's pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, then they show them around the factory, and this whole factory scene, honestly, it could have been cut. Like, there's... Do they make cars?
Well, it's Willy Wonka, 100%. They just go through the stuff. They shows all the awesome stuff in the factory. It really makes the Mach 5 seem bland. And it's supposed to be awesome.
I was just bored. I didn't care about. He's showing all these. Do they make cars or are they a racing car company? Well, they're both. Because he's got.
And he trains drivers. That's another thing.
Because most of the factory is training drivers. They're subjecting them to G pressure, to
like
G forces, cold conditions, and making them work out.
Yeah.
And then he shows them the lap of luxury. There's another. Famous racer there, Cannonball something or other.
Yeah,
another character from the but it's character from the anime, from the cartoon. He tells him, you want to win trophies, you should join up.
Yeah,
because he's got what you need. And it shows them the lovely penthouse where they can live. And John Goodman says, I think your companies are the devil, but if Speed wants to sign up with you, I won't stand in his way. And he gives him his pitch. Speed says, can I think about it? And away they go.
Yeah, and then he goes to make a point with Christina Ricci, I like that the Mach 5, that's the car he drives there. He doesn't have a separate car. He uses the same car for everything, which I think was true in the comics
I'm
as
pretty
well.
sure. I like the Mach, I like how the Mach 5, and the Mach 5 is a real, they built that. So that's not that's not just there in a green screen. They actually built
Yes, thank goodness.
They would lift it on a crane to shoot the sequences.
Yes. Now we get into trouble, because this should be, so far we've got a sports movie, right? And normally, he'd have to quit in the second act for some reason, then he'd come back in the climax. No, now we've got corporate intrigue.
Yep.
For some reason, there's some sort of Japanese part that's being manufactured, and some companies are in rivalry.
MacGuffins. They're MacGuffins.
Crazy MacGuffins. I could not follow what's going on. By the way, Hiroyuki Sanada is in this movie, who's an actor that I absolutely love, and Hollywood rarely knows what to do with. But he's kind of an all-star, because he's also in The Wolverine. And he's in Avengers Endgame. So he shows up here and there.
Yeah. So we have a scene with Roylam, whatever his name is, and
Hiroyuki Sanada.
Sanada playing himself, I guess.
He hardly has any lines.
He's the head of a rival corporation, and we're seeing some.
Okay,
this
you
is sort of
figured this out.
This is backroom deals we're seeing.
Yeah.
They literally announce what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Roylam they each own a foundry that produces this MacGuffin, which powers cars.
Okay. Right.
And if you could, and Roland literally says to him, like, whoever wins, if the car that wins the Grand Prix is powered by this MacGuffin, whoever owns the means of production to produce those MacGuffins will make a killing.
Okay.
And his counterpart says, well, I will sell to you if you can acquire this other company, this rival company, at this price. If you can acquire it for me, then I will sell you my foundry, and you will have sole access to produce the MacGuffins. Okay. So this is
amazing. I lost track of that explanation.
So this is, I guess, I almost hate myself that I paid this much attention. But this is important because of the reveal that's coming. And this reveal is kind of cool.
Okay.
Speed goes back to Roylam Motors or Roylam Industries to refuse to the guy that's been, up till now, has been very sugary sweet.
Yeah.
Very friendly and avuncular.
Yeah.
And he refuses. And as he refuses, he tells a little story. He tells Roylam a story about how his dad almost lost interest in cars and racing when Rex Racer died. And it was only when Speed found him watching a rerun of the 43 Grand Prix, 1943.
It's Royalton, sorry, I just want
Royalton, thank you. He's watching the 1943 Grand Prix. This is set in an alternate universe with sci-fi and magic, and 1943 was a high-tech year.
Yeah.
And they found themselves cheering along to it, and then they snapped out of their funk and got back to making cars, and that's what's important,
Right.
Family and the spirit of racing, and that's why he has to say no to Royalton. And Royalton then just sort of pisses himself and says, it's a great line, I can't remember exactly how it goes, he goes, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear the last 10 minutes of that sickening schmaltz.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a chance to grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And answer my question differently. But first, I'm going to tell you a story. And he says, that race, with the great showdown between two named characters, Bob
Burns. One was Burns.
Bob Burns.
Ben Burns, played by Richard Roundtree, Shaft himself.
Yes. Ben Burns, played by Shaft, and Shackleton, I think, is the other one. Burns and Shackleton.
Stickleton. He's not in the movie. The other one.
So Royalton says, you thought it was about those two competing for the finish line, but it wasn't about them at all. It was about this other guy called, nothing, nameless, basically. He crashed in the first lap. He was driving this brand of car. And as a result of that car crashing and burning on the first lap, the price of the stock of the company that made that car went down. And the owner was able to do a merger with another company, but so he tanked his own stock, and made a killing when he made a merger with the company that won the race.
Okay.
And he says,
This is a kids' movie,
This
by the
sounds
way.
complicated. Yeah, I know. Is it a kids' movie? I think it's supposed to be a family movie. It's got a
Okay.
PG rating. There's some swearing, but this, I'm not selling it. But this is sinister.
Yeah.
This is really good.
It's like the network speech.
Right.
Yeah.
This is my
But for kids.
Yeah, this is my favourite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Because Speed has just delivered this story about dreams and about how watching two men tussle for the championship and struggle manfully, and Royalton just completely destroys it because he says the race was fixed.
Yeah.
It was fixed by the car, the company owners
Yeah.
that owned the cars. They weren't even, it wasn't honest. They weren't fighting to finish. It was all set up so that they could sell stock, so they could merge companies and make a killing.
Yeah.
And it's I was almost in chills. It's deeply sinister in his delivery, and he has these great lines. He talks about Speed being crushed with the indomitable power of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Royalton keeps the slagged engine of the anonymous racer in his office.
Yeah.
To remind him that that's what racing is about. He says, you think racing's about trophies and winning? It's not. It's about power.
Yeah.
It's about money. And Speed is just horrified.
Yes.
And he goes, so now I'm just going to ask you again. And Speed's like, oh my god, not only do I super not want to join your company now after hearing that,
Yeah.
I never want to see you again, and I'm going to go off and race now. He goes, he says, I've seen that stunned look 100 times, and I know exactly what you're going to do next. You're going to go to Fiji, and you're going to prove me wrong. But I'm going to tell you something, Speed Racer. Not only will you not win in Fiji, you won't even finish the race. And sure enough, that's what happens. Because he's right, it really... and this is where shit gets weird. It's not a sports movie yet. Well, it was already weird as hell.
No, well, at some point before this, I think we've got this scene with this gangster that walked right out of Sexy Beast, who is...
Yes.
He was beating up this racer or something.
Played by a Korean pop star.
Plays this character named Taijo Togokan, which is not a Japanese name, by the way, and his sister's name is Horuko, which is also not a Japanese name.
These have come straight from the fevered brain of Peter Fernandez, I'm sure.
Yeah, so anyway, they're beating up this guy. He gets rescued by someone. I don't know what's going on.
Racer rescues him. Oh, sorry, Racer X.
Okay, yeah, but why? Who is this character? Why are they beating him up? Why is he being rescued? I don't know. By the way, this rescue is also from Fast and Furious 5, 4, I think. Okay, so I'm very confused about all this stuff. But then, later on, so he's turned down this offer from Royalton, but then... Inspector Detector shows up at their door with Racer X.
This is either before... I think it's after he crashes and burns in Fiji.
Oh, Fuji.
So, Fuji, rather.
Yeah.
Sorry, at Mount Fuji. Yeah, right. So it all comes true. If you were expecting Speed to win and prove Royalton wrong, it doesn't happen. Speed is... because that's when I remembered... I half expected Speed to win. But then I remembered that this movie was only an hour in and I had an hour and 15 minutes to go. The dirty racers take him out. And, he sort of goes home, and then there's a knock on the door. As you said, it's Inspector Detector and Racer X.
Okay, so here's another thing I didn't understand any of this. What was they trying to get him to do?
They want to... So even though it's all a fix, and the racing is just a con to make money... There are still rules.
Okay.
And if they can prove that the fixing's going on, if an Inspector Detector can prove that there's fixing going on,
okay,
then
it's amazing.
Everything will be made right.
It's amazing that they're worried about fixing when they've got like blades and stuff that shoot out of their cars to tear up other cars and rockets and stuff.
Yeah, So they want him to. They say that there's some stupid plot. Taigo Togokan wants Speed and Racer X to join him in a cross-country rally, which is the very same race that Rex Racer died in.
Okay, yes.
to win.
This is not the final race.
No.
You think the one that his brother died and that he has to re-race would be the one? No.
No, it's not. And because Royalton wants to buy Tago's father's company, and this is the one which was mentioned in that little scene earlier, so that they can corner the market on MacGuffins.
Okay.
Tago is
so lost.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I'm so lost. Okay.
Tago wants Speed and Racer X to race as a team
Yeah.
in this cross-country rally, because if they win, Royalton won't be able to buy his father's company.
Okay.
And if they race, Tago has been working with the sleazy mafia-style fixers, the Sexy Beast character,
Yeah.
and so he has evidence.
Yeah.
If they do this and
Yeah.
save his father's company, he will turn over the evidence
Okay.
to them, and then they'll be able to put I guess, fix everything, and racing will go back to being a sport instead of a con.
Okay. I'm lost again.
Yeah.
Even after 2 explanations.
So was everybody else watching this, I'm sure. So they have the race, and it's crazy. Half the time I didn't know what was going on. Everybody's got nuts weapons that they're all fighting one another with. There's one point they've got spikes that come out of the wheels, and Speed Racer has shields that come out of the wheels.
Yes.
And in one scene,
Which
the spike...
Roger Allam... Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Royalton's company had put into his car. Before he just turned him down, all that special stuff was put in by Royalton.
I hate to do it. No, it's Inspector Detective that put it in.
What?
To prepare him. Yeah, there's a scene.
But Royalton demonstrates all the stuff that they could put in the... Wasn't... Oh, am I confusing the scenes?
It doesn't matter. Really, it could be either.
It does matter because after... When Pop shows up at the race, which Speed was supposed to be in, he's like, yeah, the car's a little out of balance because all the stuff they put in. So I was assuming it's from the evil corporation.
No.
Not
that
from
was
the good cop.
It was the good guys that put it in.
Okay.
Because, so first of all, they want to get all this stuff out. So even though racing in this movie's world is basically rollerball.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though it's a murder sport of the future.
Yeah.
It's technically illegal to have all these gadgets. I guess it's like bashing people up in ice hockey.
Right.
It's like having the goon.
Yeah, there's scenes where it seems like they're depending on the dust that they're kicking up to hide what they're doing, I guess.
Why even have that? It's just needlessly complex. Just make it so it's rollerball. Just make them murdering one another. It's like Twisted Metal out there.
Yeah.
Why even have this stuff where they have to hide it? Because it has to... Anyway, they have their race, so Speed, despite trying to...
Trixie follows in the helicopter,
She
which, in one scene at least, which is like the cartoon and the comic,
God, where am I?
So the race. We're at the race. They win the race.
Yeah, let's skip the whole race.
Which goes according to plan.
Yeah.
It's very pod racy.
Yes.
So it all goes...
I'm so glad we skipped it. Okay, keep going.
It goes according to plan. They win, but then Taijo betrays them somehow.
So he tricked them. He had no intention of turning over the evidence, and not only did he not want to save his father's company, he just wanted to jack up the share price by winning, so that Royalton would have to pay more when he acquired the company.
Okay.
Yeah, but
this is all very complicated and boring.
Yeah, agreed. This film could...
And it just goes on and on. There were so many scenes, because when I kind of missed the first one, every subsequent scene stops making sense, right? Like, because I couldn't understand the first one. Now there's a second, a third, a fourth, where they're all explaining this deal about the stock value.
Well, he tricked them. He made them think that they were saving his father's company, but actually all they were doing was jacking up the share price so he could make a profit.
Okay, right.
And it feeds into this like evil corporation kind of narrative that they've got going on.
But none of those are Sanada's company. Hiroyuki Sanada's company is different.
No, he's barely in it. Don't worry. He just wants
He's making those bits.
He wants... Royalton is acquiring Taijo's company to sell to Sanada.
Okay.
And then Sanada will sell him the foundry that produces the MacGuffins.
Oh my god. Okay. Whoa.
But ultimately it doesn't matter. We just know that sleazy stuff's going on, right? If you're a kid watching this, an unusually bright and attentive kid, then you just know that sleazy stuff's going on.
Okay.
The guys in suits are sleazy and I don't like them. And Speed Racer and his dad are cool and do kung fu.
Okay. Now, there's a whole thing in here about Racer X's identity. Now, I wasn't sure if they were trying to keep it secret at the start of the movie, or if they were assuming that the people who watched the cartoon and knew that it was his brother. Yeah. But they started talking about it very early on. Speed is like, do you think Racer X is Rex? He like immediately is like, hey, I think it's him. Yeah. And then there's a scene where he pulls off his mask and he realizes it's not his brother.
It's not the same actor from the start of the film. No. That was playing Rex.
They've chosen a guy that looks very much like Rex from the cartoon, with the nose, like the shape.
Yeah. So that's the twist, I suppose. But then there's a double twist.
There's a double twist.
So if you're someone that knows the cartoon or like, even peripherally aware of it,
twist,
you instantly know that Rex.
Well, the Wachowski thinks it's an awesome twist. I think it's a boring twist to have it not be the brother.
But then it is the brother.
Yeah.
He had plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Magic plastic surgery that completely changes your face.
So dumb. Okay, so we have this... Oh, no.
Now we have a bunch of speeches. Speed's angry at the betrayal.
What's the race with all the Vikings in it and stuff?
That was the one we just did. Okay. We're not talking about it. Although a black Viking showed up, and I'm always happy when a black Viking shows up.
I can't remember why. I was trying to figure out why there were Vikings here. I think there was these people were all being recruited from all over the world. There's a guy called Snake Oiler. Yeah. They were all recruited by.
I'm pretty sure that
Royalton.
Snake Oiler. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all factions from the.
Sure, but cartoon. They have scenes where like Royalton approaches each of them or something.
Well, because they have to be bribed to take out Speed Racer.
Right, okay, right.
Because of the fixing that's always going on. But they don't fix them themselves.
It's the point.
They work through these middlemen, these organized
that's right.
criminals.
There's a reward for taking him out. Is that the scene where they're even looking at him before the race? And they're
that's
like,
later.
Or was that in the comics?
That's the next one. No, that's the next
That's
scene.
in the movie, okay.
That's, right, so... Teijo's sister, Horuko, she's guilt-ridden. She wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
So she shows up with a golden ticket.
Wait a second. So, hang on, back up a second. Did Taijo need? Why did he need the help of Racer X and Speed Racer
to win? To win the rally.
He couldn't win on his own. No. He was just like, I know I can't win this. I need the two awesomest guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a shaky plan. He might not have won.
No. But again, there were no stakes, it turns out, because if he'd lost, no big deal. But he wanted to increase the value of the company. And he doesn't turn over the evidence that he was supposed to turn over.
Right.
But so Honoko feels bad about that. She shows up with the for the Grand Prix. Mm-hmm. I need to rewind a little bit.
Yep.
To what I was talking about earlier. After this big reveal that Teijo took him for a ride, Speed is driving around the Thunderdome, the old Thunderdome track in the dark, angrily, over and over. Rex Racer turns up. And then that's where we have the reveal, where Speed says, when I drive with you, it seems like I know you, and you seem to know my moves, and I seem to know yours. So I'm just going to come out and ask you, are you Rex Racer? Are you Rex Racer, my long-lost brother? And no, as you say, he takes off his mask and it's not him. And then he gives, it's kind of an okay speech, where he talks about why Speed, kind of like, why do you race? Why do you want to race? And Speed's like, well, what's the point? I can't change anything. Mm. And Rex Racer says, if you can't, it doesn't matter if you can't change it. What's important is that it doesn't change you. It's an okay line. Mm. But then they spoil it by following it up with 3 more heartfelt speeches.
Yeah.
So he just goes straight home and starts talking to Pops. And then they have another heartfelt speech. Yeah. And then there's a heartfelt speech with Sparky of all characters. You could leave that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the very least.
Yeah.
Well, it spoils it. I should point out now, actually, just to rewind even further. After... Oh, you've got something...
I did want to say something.
Please.
Christina Ricci looks like she could be Susan Sarandon's daughter. Their faces are so similar.
They do
that for a while, I was like, oh, that's really good casting because she's her daughter. I was like, no, wait, she's not the daughter. She's the girlfriend.
Yeah, you're right.
And I was like...
That's very Freudian.
I was like, that's weird.
There you go, very Oedipal. Moving on. I was going to rewind, but I'm not going to bother. We'll keep talking. So they go to the Grand Prix, and Speed is determined to win it. They build the bestest car ever, the Mach 6.
Yes.
Disappointing
for fans of the cartoon, I would think, to replace the car.
The Mach 5, yeah. And they...
Oh, there's a fight with ninjas?
Yeah, I just skipped over that.
Oh.
That happened during the rally.
Oh, okay.
They had the old classic... The ninja climbs up into the rafters and drips a drug down a string.
I don't know if... I've seen that in You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it was an actual ninja move that has been picked up.
If you don't know, I don't know. It seems likely. It's some sort of badass assassin move.
Ninja fight, and I couldn't remember anything.
There's a lot of John Goodman absolutely wrecks it.
That's from the comics, because the dad was a wrestler. Brilliant. And it's probably in the cartoon too.
We have a zoom.
Definitely it is, because it just follows exactly. But yeah,
we have a zoom on his college ring, which says that he was a Greco-Roman wrestling champion.
In the first episode, when the biker gang tries to steal the plans while they're driving home from the meeting, he beats them up using wrestling moves. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
In the cartoon. No, it's not in the comic. The comic is... There's more slapstick in the cartoon version than in the comic.
He does do it in the comic one, the 2008 one that you read, where he telegraphs all his moves. He goes, takes my number 2 Tokyo fist.
Yes. Yeah.
Things like that. Anyway, that scene is kind of funny. John Goodman just opening a can of whoop.
Yeah, there's a lot of slapstick in this ninja fight.
Yeah.
Kind of out of nowhere. I don't think we've had any slapstick earlier.
Not really. And there's more slapstick later on where they... but I don't want to talk... Where they have that encounter in the desert and Chim Chim throws literal shit at one of the...
Wasn't that at the earlier race? The
No, this is the rally.
Yeah, the rally.
Yeah,
okay.
So the ninjas attack first.
Before the rally.
No, that's during the rally. It's a multi-day race.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God. Oh, what's the time? Oh, okay, we're not doing too bad. It's only 10 past.
Yeah.
It's only an hour and 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
We're doing okay. All right, so to cut a long story short, this is a big thorn in Royalton's plan that Speed is showing up at the Grand Prix because it's fixed.
Yeah.
Everyone's on the take except Speed. And that means everything can go wrong. So Royalton offers $1 million.
Yes. Okay.
To the racer that takes out.
Okay.
Speed racer. Mm. And then you say, as in the locker room, they're all eyeing him off because they all want $1 million.
Right.
And Cannonball is the guy that's supposed to win the race because he's driving the car with the MacGuffin in it, the one that's going to make the company all the money now that he controls the 2 foundries that can produce it in the world.
Yeah.
And he has a spear hook. Now, we've had this spear hook mentioned over and over. It doesn't seem any more deadly or dangerous than any of the other weapons anyone's been using, but it's singled out for special
It's the number 1 cheat. It's the worst cheat you can possibly do, I guess.
All it does is connect the cars together.
Yeah. In fact, it would ruin your own race as much as the car that you hook.
It does. It ruins your own race. So, whatever. Not very well thought out. So, sure, Speed completely outraces Cannonball, even with the spear hook. He's no match for Speed. Speed utters a completely lame line where I think he yells at Cannonball, "Get that weak shit off my track."
Yes, I almost wrote it down, but then I got distracted. I couldn't remember exactly what he said. It was so bad.
It was so cringeworthy.
Why couldn't they have made this a G movie?
Because G movies, because you've just alienated every teenager.
Right. You're right. Yes,
and 20 to 25-year-old.
It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't seem.
That's why you throw swear words in any movie, because G movie means kids.
Yeah, you're right. But I know the industrial reason. I just think in terms of the artistic thing, you've got a kids show, a show that was watered down for kids, and you're gonna put in swearing to get a PG rating. So why not just show a bit of blood instead or something? Make it more authentic to the original.
Anyway, Speed wins the race. We have a pretty nauseating scene, really, where... Well, it's not just figuratively nauseating, it's literally nauseating, because it really ramps up the colours and the effects. At one point, he's driving through a white and red tube that fills the whole screen, and it's rotating, and I thought I was going to be sick.
Did you watch this on your phone, or...?
No, I watched it on the television, the big television in my lounge room.
Yeah.
So I was looking away at times just to take notes, because it was really sensory overload. And also, as for the figuratively nauseating part, we have the film starts reciting lines of dialogue over Speed as he's driving towards the end. It replays not just one or two lines, but something like 5, 6, or 7 lines of dialogue, and it's like, wow.
It's like the inspiration. It's like the end of Superman, where both his fathers are speaking to him, and he's deciding whether or not to save the world.
Yeah, except that's way better than this.
Oh, yeah.
The film is absolutely overestimating its impact it's made on us, the viewers. Like, we're supposed to care about all these lines that 10 or 15 lines that 10 or 15 characters said.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
He finally wins this exhausting race and gives my eyes a break. There's a track. He wins. Great. There's a track invasion. Lucky none of those people tried to claim the $1 million. And with this victory, it's a whole new world. Everybody is so happy. You know, like Bob Burns' shaft up in the commentary box, even though he's a cheat himself, which was established earlier.
Yeah.
After Speed loses at Mount Fuji, he actually meets Bob Burns. And Ben Burns, rather. Who comes out and says, "Wow, kid, I haven't seen moves like that in a long time." And Speed says, "Mr. Burns, tell me, please. I heard a terrible rumour that it was fake."
Yeah.
And Ben Burns just says...
He says, let me just say me and Stickleton weren't as rivals as people think.
Goes, it's funny. People thought Stickleton and I hated one another. Yeah. And then he walks away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. But now, at the end, he's happy that Speed, despite being a cheat, he's happy that Speed's winning, and he's yelling excitedly, "It's a whole new world! Everything's changed!" You know, with this single victory, the sport's become clean. Magically.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be fine. Forever!
Yeah.
You know, and then we have finally some brevity. At the end, we have the newspapers. We have
we get all the headlines.
Of a long sequence where Royalton goes to jail, we just have some headlines.
Yes.
Royalton imprisoned. Crime doesn't pay, or cheaters don't prosper.
Yes.
And it's him in jail.
But the final frame of the Speed Racer movie is a newspaper of this guy in jail. Are you kidding me?
I don't have a problem with it.
This is a movie about racers and Speed Racer. I think it's about Speed Racer. Why is the final frame of this movie a static newspaper of the villain?
I was just happy to see some economy and storytelling.
Well,
finally. As far as I'm concerned, it ended on a high note.
I don't think we needed the headlines. I think it would have been... Somebody could have... You could have had some ADR... Somebody says, Stickleton's... Or
why didn't they have those newspapers? Why not have those newspapers at the start of the film instead of the 30 minutes of exposition?
Why not just
have Speed Racer is a great racer?
You know what?
Rex Racer disappeared 10 years ago.
Why not use the cartoon? Because I really was wishing... I was like, oh, I hope Speed gets blinded and Racer has to co-pilot with him.
No.
I was really hoping for that to happen.
Too bad, because here's the thing. I don't think that the Wachowski sisters are big fans of Speed Racer.
Wait a second.
Stop
right there, because I'm going to say, I know what you mean based on the quality of the output that has resulted, but my question is, why did they make the movie? Because this is the only movie that they wrote, directed, and produced. The first, Bound, Matrix, those were all like produced by other people. Or, V for Vendetta, they wrote but did not direct.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is like I think the first...
I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Based on an interview, based on some stuff I read online and an interview I read with them.
Okay.
So I'll get to that. All right. So we've finished talking about the film now. I just want to talk a little bit about the themes. I didn't... Like I said, Royalton's speech in the middle, where he punctures Speed's romantic view of the racing, I think it's okay. I kind of like it. Speed has this romantic idea about racing. He has a speech with Susan Sarandon as well, where she tells him that he's an artist. She literally says in so many words, when you are driving, you are making art.
Yeah.
And I love watching you do that. So, Speed is an artist who's discovered that he can't thrive in his craft without selling out.
Okay.
And, that's kind of like that's fair enough. It's an interesting theme to put in a film.
Okay.
I felt. And, the world is not set up to favour a plucky underdog.
But I don't think he sees himself as an artist, and she only gives that speech very late in the movie.
No, it's right around the same time as.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Okay.
No, I think it is around about the middle.
Okay.
It's not one of the later string of speeches at the end. I don't blame you for confusing it, and it's very possible that I myself am wrong. But I felt like towards the middle of the film, I sort of felt like, oh yeah, sure, you know, and it has the ring of truth. You know, there is in a lot of endeavours where you want to just do something, you want to make something, produce something artistic and something for yourself, but you can't because of vested interests, because you need to make a living. We've all experienced it. I mean, us as podcasters are putting this out there, and it's not going to be our career. Let's just say that. But here's the, but there is a positive message towards the end, because Speed, of course, triumphs because of his art. You know, he makes good art. He doesn't sell out, and everything turns out all right. Not only does everything turn out all right, he literally changes the world.
Right.
By winning the race. And, as Rex Racer says, if the world is unfair, you can try to change it, but even if you can't, the important thing is that it doesn't change who you are deep down, that you stay the same person. Okay, all of this is very well-meaning and positive. The trouble is, first of all, it really outstays its welcome.
Yeah.
I think. It just goes on and on and on. The other thing is that it became clear as time went on that the Wachowskis are talking about themselves.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think Speed is a stand-in for them, at least as far as this message is concerned.
Okay.
They consider themselves to be very serious auteurs.
Okay.
Right? And they are saying, look, in this world, Hollywood, which is so governed by money and producers and rules and selling out, we, on the other hand, are artists, and we're making this pure thing. And I think that's why the film really starts to grate after a while, and it starts to feel really smug.
What?
Once it occurred to me that this is a message that they're putting in the film about themselves.
Okay, I'll tell you why I don't necessarily buy that.
That's fine.
Okay, so we have 3 Matrix movies. We have, they wrote Assassins, right? Which was a piece of junk. And then we've got Bound, which was great.
Yep.
And then we've got 3 Matrix movies in a row. And then they wrote V for Vendetta, and then they wrote The Invasion, which is another turd, right? The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I've never seen
version.
it, but it's Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig.
That's right. And then we've got Speed Racer.
Yeah.
So where is the studio pressure? Where is the...
There isn't any. This is what makes it annoying. Here's the thing. I'm getting ahead of myself now. I wanted to talk about the...
Actually, their careers remind me of Shyamalan. In terms of somebody that made like a couple of hits and then just keeps getting studio money to make more, even though the rest of them are crap.
I had a whole series that I wanted to go through, but I'm just going to go straight to the interview that I read in 2012.
Okay.
The Wachowskis, when they were brought on to make this... All right, I'm going to actually talk about how this film got made.
Okay. Excellent.
It's been in development... It was in development from 1992. That's when Warner Brothers first acquired the rights.
Okay.
In 1995, Johnny Depp was going to play Speed Racer.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, he was attached.
Wow.
And Racer X was going to be played by Henry Rollins.
What? I want to see that movie.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Henry Rollins, I guess because of his... Has he ever acted in anything, ever? I guess.
Yeah, he's been in a few movies.
Okay, all right. Yeah. It was supposed to start filming in October of 1995, but Depp took time off.
Okay.
Then the budget kept going up, so the director that they had left, and without a director, Johnny Depp left as well.
Okay.
Then, for the next 10 years, the studio hires various directors and screenwriters, but none of them stick. Mm-hmm. Production never starts. In 2004, Vince Vaughn comes on as an executive producer.
Okay.
And he was going to play Racer X.
Yes, I was about to say, he's got the nose and the height.
Yep. But that also fell through. But And then 2 years later, in 2006, that's when the Wachowskis come on.
Okay.
And they are hot off the... like
3 Matrixes.
Say what you want about The Matrix and V for Vendetta, but those films were successful.
Yeah.
They made money.
Yeah. So they can choose their projects.
They can. So these suits are rubbing their hands, right?
Okay.
At the thought, we've got the Wachowskis.
Okay.
And what's more, they're going to direct a PG film, you know, not a M or R-rated one or whatever the Matrix and the V for Vendetta was. They think the Wachowskis want to broaden their audience. We are going to make bank. Mm-hmm. This is straight out of I got this straight from an interview with Lana. But then what happened? Well, I don't know. They did acid or something. Shit got weird. No, what happened was, they decided to make an avant-garde film.
Okay.
Now, they literally have said this. They've got high on their own supply.
Okay.
No one... They want to start being experimental.
Okay.
They want to make some wacky art.
Okay.
Something crazy and different. And they specifically say that you can't make this film... You can't make this kind of art for adults. They literally compared themselves to Picasso.
Oh my god.
Right? You know, in cinema everything looks the same. It's a really aggressive straitjacket aesthetically. We started talking about cubism for interest, and we started talking about how could you make a cubist film? And then we realised that if you tried to make a cubist film for adults, you would end up like Picasso, running from the angry mob when he first showed Guernica. It's because adults, they reject change. And an aesthetic change is too aggressive a death for them. Every generation experiences aesthetic death, and when you really assault an aesthetic, people freak out. But the kids are okay with aesthetic change. They literally set out to make a film that's visually different. They
change the minds of kids.
Yep.
To show the kids a new way of making art.
Exactly.
A new visual idiom.
Exactly. And not just that, but the editing as well. You know, the bonkers editing?
Yeah.
That's deliberate. They mentioned Ulysses, of all things. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, so they say...
Oh, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, conventional cinematic editing, cut, change scene, so on, that's like conventional grammar. And James Joyce's Ulysses, what you see with that is authors trying to transcend the boundaries of conventional grammar. So what we thought is, we're going to assault every single modern aesthetic with this film. Why do you have to use cuts? We want to do sequences that are like run-on sentences, stream of consciousness sentences that don't just start and end with the conventional cut, that are just montage collages and flow, like Joyce was looking for when he wrote Ulysses,
Whoa.
the way that his brain experiences the world. We wanted them to feel like this film was an experiential, flowing thing that was transcending normal, simple, linear narrative. So they are literally... In this interview, this incidentally is coming out in 2012, so 4 years after the film bombed.
Yeah.
They are, in so many words, comparing themselves to Picasso and James Joyce. And at this point, this is when the message of the film starts to really ring hollow. When you realise that they think themselves a speed racer, and when Speed changes the world with his art of racing, they think that they were going to do that with this film. And that really spoils it for me. Because no one... It's like you said. It's like you just said before. No one is trying to straitjacket them. They're not at the mercy of the studio system. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
They've just made 3 massive hits, maybe 4 if you include V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
The problem here is not that people are trying to control them. The problem is no one's telling them no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think... Boy... if I could say something that sounds more arrogant than them, I've read Ulysses cover to cover. I really wonder whether either of those ladies have. I really doubt it. There's very few people that have started it and finished it.
I haven't finished it.
So, and also, there's a reason that hasn't caught on, and also it's very interesting to me that they didn't mention, they would talk about editing and not mention like Eisenstein or the people that really worked it out at the beginning, at the dawn of cinema, and that's why things are the way they are. It just sounds totally ridiculous to me.
Yes, and to me. Hence why I just read it in all its glory.
Wow. Okay. Is there anything else we need?
Well, how about
what about the floating heads? You were going to say something about it.
They're channeling. They think they're channeling James Joyce. They think they're changing the grammar of cinema.
Wow.
With these silly transitions instead of regular.
So they're by their thinking, this would influence other filmmakers, and all movies afterwards would employ floating head scene cuts.
Yeah. Or either that, or everyone would recognise them for the auteurs they were in making this film based on a cartoon that employs floating heads, and everyone would go, wow, you know what, that's just like Ulysses.
Yeah. Wow.
Impossibly pretentious.
Yeah.
Alright. Some trivia. Okay, so this film, obviously a big dud. It costs $120 million to make. That doesn't include marketing. It made $94 million at the box office.
Okay.
The marketing, they spent at least $80 million on that. So $200 million in costs, $94 million in revenue.
Yep.
That's a bomb.
Yep.
They had planned to make sequels. Nope, that obviously didn't. Well, Warner Brothers did.
Yeah.
And apparently, and Emil Hirsch, whose career hasn't done super good since this, he's also made statements, a couple of statements over the years saying that he'd be very willing to play Speed Racer again. And at the moment, J.J. Abrams is apparently producing a live-action series for Apple TV.
Okay.
That was of September last year.
Okay.
Based on a script that he wrote in the 90s, presumably for Warner Brothers.
Interesting.
He would have been one of the screenwriters that was attached at one point.
Okay.
Okay, so just some other random trivia. Just to really hammer home the fact that this is based on the anime and not the manga. Emil Hirsch watched every episode of Speed Racer to prepare.
Okay.
Not too difficult because there's only 52, as he pointed out. Incidentally, I think I mentioned online, so on Wikipedia and on reporting on this film, they always say based on the manga and anime. But if this is based on the manga, I will eat my hat. Shot entirely on green screen, as I said, in Germany.
Okay. There's one moment in the movie where Speed pops out of his car and he crosses his hand with a pointed finger.
Yes.
And I'm like, why is that the end of the movie? Why is that in the middle of the movie?
Indeed. Peter Fernandez has a cameo.
Yes, he's one of the announcers at the start.
That's correct. And so is Corinne Orr, who did the female voices.
Oh, okay.
Someone punched one of the chimps.
Whoa. Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
And 5 piranhas died.
Whoa! There were real piranhas?
They were real piranhas!
But there was clearly CG piranhas in there.
I don't know why there were real piranhas on set.
What killed them? It's another question.
Good question. But apparently one of the chimps bit one of the child actors.
Yikes!
And or one of the stand-ins, one of the stand-ins for the child actors, and the trainer lost it and punched this chimp on the day when. It
was the trainer. It wasn't even the kid that got.
Yeah, the trainer punched it. Apparently, there's some scandal there. And this film followed the usual pattern as far as merchandise is concerned. The one set by Batman back in 1989. There was a lot of merchandise.
I had my son had 2 Hot Wheels cars, which were given to him by my brother. I think I'm pretty sure.
And they would have been made for this movie.
And because they were as soon as because I hadn't seen the movie, but when I watched it, I saw the cars. I was like, I knew the designs of they felt comfortable, familiar, because they also came with little add-on bits like claws and stuff that you could stick onto the bottom.
Yes. The LA Times at the time reported that Warner Brothers licensed nearly 5,000 Speed Racer related products.
Whoa! Wow. I don't remember seeing any of them.
All of it in landfill somewhere.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing a single one except for those 2 dinky cars that my brother bought for my son when he was 3 years old.
Yeah. It's all down there with E.T. the video game in Southern Desert in California.
Yeah.
Or Arizona or wherever it is.
Okay.
Shall we do our rating?
Yeah. So it's a bit tricky, but let's talk about the 200 pages of fan translations we read of Pilot Ace. Or if you want, you can talk about the Speed Racer tie-in comic.
It's tough.
I actually really loved that snippet we read of Pilot Ace. Okay. I thought it was wild. I thought the card, it was so fast. I thought he really drew, the speed really comes across clearly. It's only 2 or 3 panels a page. It's a clear difference from the Speed Racer comic That comic is
Italian
like
comic.
8 panels a page.
You know, it reminded me a bit
And,
of the
and they're very cute. They're very lined out in rectangles in the Speed Racer comic, but in the original Polonaise, it's very dynamic. And I just love the blind that he was blinded and they're driving across that bridge that was collapsing and all the crazy stuff and the robot car that was killing people and was named after Napoleon's horse. It was just one thing after another, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And I was very sad that we only had a fragment that was from the middle of it, but so it is.
That's excellent. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
By the way, I do want to mention that the DC Wildstorm version that came out in the 90s was flipped, so it reads left to right instead of right to left. And they changed the names to the Speed Racer names, or not the original. And even the DMP version, which came out as a time to the movie, did not keep the original names. It went with the Speed Racer names, but it's not flipped.
But that wouldn't make any sense to... Yeah,
no,
anybody.
in terms of marketing,
No, it wouldn't make any sense to anyone. Hence why, and this film, of course, as well. The film's called Speed Racer.
Yes, of
it's
course.
It's not called
Mahha
GoGoGo.
But yes, I did dig the comic.
For me, it's an A. I just sort of found it a bit of a struggle to get through.
Okay.
I didn't thrill to the art as much as you did, and the stories just seemed much like the stories I used to watch when I watched Speed Racer as a kid.
Okay.
But now the film, I think I can predict your...
It's an A. It's just... I really wanted to like it, and as I said, I liked the car scenes. I really did like the racing moments in it. But anytime they stopped to do anything else, I was really frustrated by it.
I've made my feelings very clear. I think it has its moments. I think if it had been about an hour and a half shorter, it's tightened up the story.
Yeah.
And also, it might be a bit late to bring up something new, but I also found that it didn't have... the visuals are very extreme, but I didn't feel... they didn't feel coherent. I didn't feel like that... at one point I wrote, is this the anti-Sin City?
Yeah, right.
And the anti-Sin City, not just in that it's colourful instead of dark, but Sin City has an aesthetic. You know you're watching Sin City from start to finish.
Yeah.
It has a very specific visual style that's consistent from beginning to end.
Yeah.
This film doesn't have a visual style, unless the style is no style. A rainbow vomiting on the screen.
I think that's a style. I think
to have no style.
No, I think it is a style. I think the swipes that we've talked about and the colors. I think
the swipes, sure.
I think it's consistent.
The odd wipe. No, okay, that's fair enough, but I don't think so. I couldn't come to grips with it visually.
Right.
It didn't look like it subscribed to some kind of coherent visual plan. Like, how do I know I'm watching the Speed Racer film?
Right.
Aside from the Speed Racer cars, which admittedly look really cool. I really love those 1950s racing cars with all the bulbous curves.
Yeah.
They look fantastic. But how do I know I'm watching Speed Racer? You don't, from one scene to the next.
Right.
It's just lurid craziness with nothing linking it visually from one scene to another. And that's a shame. I think if they'd had a more... That also would have improved it if they'd had a more consistent visual theme.
Yeah.
So obviously an A for me.
Okay.
Too pompous, too long.
Okay. Adaptation based on knowing that they did not read the comics, which weren't available anyway.
Yeah.
But based on the cartoon being very close to both comics, for the most part, how do we feel about it as an adaptation?
As an adaptation of the manga, of the comics, that's an A. Because as I said, I didn't even look at them.
No, but how would you feel about... How does it rate as an adaptation of the cartoon? The animation?
They've made efforts.
Yes, but I think the city is so wrong.
Yeah.
I actually think they're way off track, and I don't think they've even got the spirit of the character of Speed Racer right.
No, well,
I don't think the Speed Racer cartoon is about a corrupt racing world.
No.
That's not, and I don't think it's about some science fiction future where everything is more advanced than the cars. The cars are supposed to be the best thing about it. So I think they've missed the point.
Yeah, this is the... Yeah. I think I agree, actually. This is nothing to do with Speed Racer. It's just literally a framework on which to hang their nuts aesthetic ideas about the future of cinema. Hence, this over-the-top city. Hence, the crazy racetracks.
Yeah.
As you said, it was always... Like, the cars were crazy, and these guys' names were crazy.
Yeah.
And the kind of shenanigans they got up to were crazy, but otherwise it was still kind of like a recognizable world,
Yeah.
just with colourful characters in it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
This was just another universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where people didn't behave like real people, and
Yeah.
an odd anti-corporate message.
Yeah. But I will say, we are going to come across examples coming up of people who loved the source material and created a thing which looked nothing like it.
Sure.
So it does happen.
We've talked before about adaptations. You know, we're not consistent week to week what we consider a good adaptation.
Yeah.
And I think I've always maintained that a really good adaptation is just inspired by the source material rather than slavishly copying it.
But I think this
Or
missed out on the
reproducing
spirit of
it.
the original.
I'm inclined to agree with you. You convinced me.
Okay.
You absolutely convinced me.
Okay.
I was going to say, we have this concept
Yeah.
of the cheat episode,
Okay.
right? We have a list of films,
Yeah.
which are feature films
Yeah.
that are almost, but not quite, based on comic books and comic strips.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're different, you know, sometimes it's a film, you know, based on a comic book that never existed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's a film where a comic has been made after the film based on an original version of the script that was never filmed.
Yeah.
And there's some where it's a film where they wanted to get the rights for a certain character,
Yes.
and then they didn't,
Yeah.
and then they just renamed him.
Yeah.
And we've got this cheat list, and I do hope one day we'll get to it. Although we haven't quite decided how it will fit in. A, because we have so many films that are not cheats to go to.
Yeah.
We have enough for years and years and years.
Yes.
And B, because we haven't quite figured out how we would fit them in terms of the framework of how we have set out to record this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, how we would number them, how we would justify it,
Yes.
considering this is a podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips. But Kumar, I kind of feel like today we had our very first cheat episode.
It was very close to a cheat. I agree. I felt like it, and until I watched the cartoon, and then I felt like it wasn't a cheat because I was reading, and as I said, I couldn't get real solid confirmation online about Pilot Ace and when the Mahha GoGoGo comic started. So I was like, oh my god, have I screwed up? Is this a cheat episode? But then when I saw how the plot lines were lifted note from Pilot Ace into the Mahha GoGoGo comic, which then made it into the cartoon, I was like, okay, it's not fully a cheat. There was a line here so that if this movie had adapted those episodes, it would have actually been based on Pilot Ace. There would have been Pilot Ace storylines, if you know what I mean.
Pilot Ace is adaptation bedrock, ultimately.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can say that Pilot Ace is the comic upon which Mahha GoGo is based,
Yeah.
which inspired Speed Racer,
Yeah.
which inspired Speed Racer 2008.
Yes.
So there's a pretty clear line of descent going right back to a comic. So yes, perhaps it's not a cheat, but it is pretty tortuous. And
I thought it was going to be, and then it turned out not to be.
we've opened the door to the cheat episodes. just a chink. We're
Okay.
closer than we were last week.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll accept that. I was worried until I started reading more and more.
Heaven forbid.
Okay. Okay. So please join us on Facebook and support our Patreon. And what else am I supposed to say? Oh, rate and review and like and subscribe.
Yep.
Depending on what your
Platform is, how you're following us.
Yeah. And the Patreon is just the name of the podcast of Patreon. And the link is in the show notes. Okay, next week we're going to do Teen Titans Go.
Yep.
So we had said during the Batman Mask of the Phantasm episode that there were no more animated theatrical releases, but there was one, and this was it, and it's from a few years ago.
Yep.
We're going to read some, I don't know quite, we're going to probably read some early Titans from the 60s and then the 80s one, which is the most important of the Titans stuff, the Marv Wolfman, George Perez stuff.
And I believe we'll have a special guest.
Yes, we'll have a special guest.
Can't wait.
Italians would eat.